Okay. Hopefully I can talk you through some of this that you're going to be looking at, providing that you're looking at it. Some people's not interested in a biblical Bible occurrences pertaining to Bible prophecy. But then again, some people are. What you're looking at right here is the final development of I want to make sure I get my words right, so forgive me for hesitating here. What you're looking at is the beginning phases as well as the ending phases of a curse that I planted up at LBL. And what I'm doing here, I'm actually coming to the scene, taking pictures as it's coming through to another year, and I'm fixing to destroy all of that's in there and make it all flat again. But basically what you're looking at right there is in fact a curse that I planted up at Land Between the Lakes. And I know a lot of you probably saying, well, why in the world would he have wanted to have done that? Well, whenever you have received all the rejection and denial like I have, and all the persecution like I have, you understand that this is God's will for this to occur in regards towards the opening of the first seal, in regards towards the two witnesses, in regards towards the apocalypse that's leading into Armageddon. This is all the Heavenly Father's will. And I knew finally it dawned on me towards what I was up against, and the Lord led me up into this area towards leaving a curse, not just with the people in LBL, not just with the people in Kentucky, but basically all of America. Since then, I have grown to regret that I had to make that type of a statement in regards to this. And since then, things has sure enough gotten AWOL in regards towards everything falling apart. This was a ceremony that I had going on 6/26/09 after I left Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in discovering a major government cover-up out there in regards to what went on with the Timothy McVeigh Nichols ordeal. Like I said, this is just the beginning phases. What you're going to hear in the background is me snacking on something because I haven't ate lunch yet, and I'm going to be moving around towards getting dressed. Some of these things I will be able to comment on, and some of them I won't be able to comment on. Like, as I'm burying the badge, the Cherokee Indian badge, there was a bird that seemingly was taken or fell out of its nest, and I was actually attacked by the mama bird because that little bitty bird wound up in that hole, and I had to reach down, grab the bird up, and place the bird off to the side just to make sure I didn't harm and hurt the little bird. I don't know what kind of little bird it is. It looks like it just had barely hatched, maybe within a day. But for some reason, that little bird wound up in the center of that hole, in the center of that site. I think it was God that was elevating that demonstration. And to this day, I feel like that it had something to do with a sacrifice. I didn't sacrifice the bird per se, even though it was a wild bird, but I'm pretty sure because I did touch the bird, that probably put a marking onto the bird to the point that the mama bird probably didn't want to have nothing to do with it. So in actuality, I did sacrifice that bird, not realizing that I was sacrificing the bird, because ordinarily, whenever you touch something like that, with it being a wild, as soon as Mother Nature smells it and smells a different scent on their hatched baby or whatever you want to call it, ordinarily they won't have nothing to do with it. I didn't think that through. I don't know what else I could have done, but maybe take two sticks and put together towards trying to pull the bird actually out of the hole that it had abruptly been put into. Not fell into, but put into. This is the way that I had my vehicle dressed up in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in regards to a camp meeting, a special prophet and Bible message, a message of peace. I'm just going to let this flip through here, and those that want to look at it can look at it, and those that don't, you don't have to. That's my ex-wife, Shirley, that we're at her father's house right there celebrating Christmas, and we also wind up at her sister's house, the same entry of this film. This film will probably take right at an hour for it to go through its I'm going to call it a automated digital picture form. It'll take just about an hour for it to go through. There's used to be my stepdaughter and her boyfriend. We're at their grandmother's house, Janice and Bill Bashir's. That was Shirley's sister. That was Heather. There's Miss Janice right there. Miss Bashir's. Charlie is dressed up as Santa Claus this year. The guy that I was sitting beside a while ago. There's Mr. Michael and Mikey. These are the people that walked out of my life strictly because that I stood up for the Lord thy God. Because I had to stand up towards trying to save the planet. There's another one of her sisters. Back up. Right there. Her name is Judy. And there's Bill Bashir's that fought in the Korean War. He's no longer with us. I never did have no problem with him. Matter of fact, I wound up painting a car for him all over and gave him a heck of a discount on the car. But he had his ways. So does everybody else. Caitlin is her name. Katie. Amanda and Katie. Donna. This is my son's children during the year of 2005. All these pictures, not all of them, but the pictures of the family was taken during 2005. They're scattered. Some of them is down in Florida. Some of them is over here. Some of them is out in another area. Some of them is where I used to work in Phoenix, Arizona. They're just kind of scattered randomly. Like I said, if you feel like going through them, there's my ex-wife again, Shirley. If you feel like going through them, you can. There's ways that she had the kitchen decorated in the double wide that we had out in Juneau Barrington Road. There's Amanda again and her friend. This is Shirley's teammates that she worked with for years and years and years that become her best friend, my ex-wife. I personally feel like that these two people right here had a great deal to do with what Shirley's decision was towards walking out of my life, strictly because of me walking back into the ministry and standing back up for the Lord Jesus Christ. I truly believe that these two people had a great deal of influence on her to the point that she walked out of my life in 2005. Of course, it's neither here nor there now. You know, this is all spilt milk and water under the bridge. This was an area that was flooding below our house because that was all our lower yard right there. I wound up building that screened-in deck. We had 5 acres. This is one of our bedrooms inside the house. Another bedroom, another bedroom, another bedroom, another bedroom. Our bedroom. I built a retainer wall right there to hold back the dirt, and then I filled it in and finished out the driveway. That right there, what you're looking at that's a weather vane, and that was the last project that Shirley and I done together towards doing something as a team, or doing something as a family, or doing something as a unit. That was the last project that she regrettably helped that day towards putting that lightning rod on top of our house. And of course, about 2 weeks later, she walked out of my life. Maybe less than 2 weeks, maybe less than a week. This is Jimmy Darnell over in Huntington, Tennessee. I used to work for him, First Choice. These are tombstones over in the Land Between the Lakes. I think they got something like 1,500 cemeteries. That's my four-wheeler, or it was, until I wound up losing it in a divorce. And once more, this is the sacred site. This is on Easter that I come up there and cleaned it and took care of it, groomed it, stayed with it for years and years. Acts 23:9. This was a board that I had nailed to the tree out in the woods. And I guess that board right there probably stayed on that tree right there, give or take, for probably 4 or 5 years before I finally dislodged it and pulled it off. Here's the sword box that's empty. The emptied sword box. This is the back of the sword box. That's my uncle, Uncle Billy Gene Jordan, that lives up in Paris Landing. That's his wife, Betty May. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Billy Jean now has reached the ripe age of about 86, if I'm not mistaken. This was a letter that I posted on the back end of our door, living at Juneau Barkington Road, pertaining to how that she walked out of my life. And I was just kind of putting things out there to the general public in case somebody come and knock on the door, towards them having some sort of a clue towards what was actually going on. These are some more letters that are handwritten. This was in 2005. That's whenever Miss Jackson decided to walk out of my life. This was on my birthday. He leadeth me. This is a letter here that I obtained from Mr. Robert Waterfield whenever Shirley and I first got married. We got married first time in either 1990 or 1991, and I come back and got a statement from the Waterfields, because they originally not only gave us permission of getting married down on the corner where they used to live, but they actually gave us a gift, a glass that had the 6 points of the Star of David for a wedding gift. This is a picture that I had drawn out pertaining to Satan and Satan's 12 other disciples that I met over here in Martin, Tennessee. This was the setting. As good of a setting that I got an artist, Miss Ford, that I don't think is no longer with us. I know her husband isn't. That I got Miss Ford to actually draw that picture of Satan and their disciples, the people that I met over in Martin, Tennessee at that time. This is a report, a police report over, I believe, an accident. No, this was over my dad going to come down there with a baseball bat and beat. I guess he thought he was going to beat some sense into me because I decided to stand back up for the Lord Jesus Christ. Looks like this report was written April the 10th of 98. At the time, I was working for Collision Specialists in Jackson, Tennessee. And he come down there with the two brothers towards going to work me over and wear me out simply because that I had made some statements about him that he disagreed with. Well, I filed a report on him and got a junction against him. This was whenever I predicted that the Mississippi River was going to begin to start to run dry. I never said that the Mississippi River would go dry. I said the Mississippi River will start to go dry. Once more, I've been so misunderstood in my prophecies at the time that I gave my prophecies, just like telling people about the electrical disturbances, just like telling people about a bloody road ahead. I've been so misunderstood towards going out into the eyes of the general public, towards telling them what God had revealed to me to reveal to them. No sword, no peace. This was pertaining to the Bush that I felt like had a great deal of destroying or trying to destroy the ministry, because it was during Bush's administration in Jackson, Tennessee, whenever a Secret Service agent followed me down there and helped to confiscate the first sword symbolizing peace on earth. This is just a bunch of records that I had obtained, keeping up with my facts. We're back here now on Juneau Barrington Road. That was my black lab. That was the pear trees that we put out. Set up a trailer. Put in a screened-in back porch. Retaining wall. Done a lot of work out there. And finally, there at the last, Michael, Shirley's son, at the time was living just barely up in Kentucky, paid a moving agency to bring his trailer down, and him and Heather was going to start their lives all over again down there on our property, because our property was big enough to accommodate both families. But whenever I stood back up for the Lord Jesus Christ, that pretty well blowed that ideal. And I couldn't believe that Shirley would actually stab her son in the back towards doing something like that, because he'd done already paid for the ground to be perked. He'd done already paid for the movers to come in and move that trailer from Kentucky, which probably cost $1,500 at the time, or maybe more. And I just couldn't, it was unbelievable to me that the woman done what she done. And it wasn't because I was lazy. It wasn't because I beat on her. It wasn't because I was doing anything heinously wrong. It wasn't because I was a criminal. She left my life because I stood back up for the Lord Jesus Christ. Bottom line. No ifs, ands, buts about it. This was a garden that we had. Can't hardly tell the garden from the weeds. I think at that time it was just a bunch of weeds. This was the t-shirt that I sent the 43rd President of the United States while I was living up in Davidson County in Nashville, Tennessee. And this is what the t-shirt read that I wound up getting in trouble by Secret Service up in Nashville, Tennessee over. Just one drop of Jesus' blood washed away my sins. A bloody road ahead. The crown of thorns, the crown of life. Juby story. And these are the dates, 7/1/05, and shortly after that is whenever Katrina hit. This is just some more pictures coming off of the t-shirt that I had an artist to draw out and paint whenever I sent it to the White House. That's a picture of my mother. To the right hand of her is my older brother, Danny. He was in the Boy Scouts at the time whenever we was living in Round Lake. The two kids, the one kid to the left of my mother, which would be to our right, that was Douglas Keith. that everybody called Otis once we moved down to Tennessee. Both of my older brothers had red hair. I had black hair, and my younger brother had black hair. But I'm thinking that this picture, I was only 2, possibly 3 years old whenever this picture was taken. You keep in mind, I went through a major transformation period at the age of 2 weeks towards having a polycystic kidney removed. And I was basically a miracle child to be able to survive that. So this picture was taken up in Chicago somewhere around 1963, 1964. It was before my younger brother ever become in existence, David Jeffrey Jackson. Shortly after that picture was whenever he come into an existence. Once more, you're looking at the apocalypse of the 4 horsemen. Different graphics, pictures representing the seals, first seal, second seal, third and fourth seal. What people don't realize is the apocalypse takes place first that sets up the proceedings for Armageddon. This is my truck that I bought in 2005, brand new. I was living at the time in Nashville, Tennessee, off of Briz Lane Road. Here's some people here that I went fishing with at the time, up in Nashville, Tennessee. There I am to the right. That was a painter to the left. Another written letter to the prior president that is now no longer with us. This is the truck that I had before I filed bankruptcy. At the time, I was working for Price's Collision Center in Nashville, Tennessee. That was our view that we had from the front of the door, and that's Price's Collision right there on the right-hand side. You see the sign, Collision Center. This is a guy, I went to his house, and he was rebuilding his car. Sean Sheeks was his name. He's no longer with us. He had 4 or 5 body shops up in Nashville, Tennessee. Wound up getting involved with the wrong crowd and got a hold of some drugs. And the next thing you know, his father-in-law and his wife was threatening to ruin him. And because he didn't want to, I guess, go through the embarrassment, he wound up taking his own life. Real good guy. Sean Sheeks. He actually worked with us down in Jackson, Tennessee for almost a year, helping collision specialist Steve Hardy. There's my dad right there reading something or doing something, or getting ready to cut the watermelon or something. Dad always had some beautiful, beautiful gardens. This is Miss Bobby Sue. This is the person that I become acquainted with in Nashville, Tennessee, before Secret Service or the FBI or TVI or somebody wound up going into her house and explaining to her that I was basically a could-be, would-be criminal, to the point that she thought that they bugged her line, and ever since then, our relationship diminished. We were still friends there at the last. As a matter of fact, she died this past last year, long about April, March or April, whenever she passed away. And I truly believe that she passed away from the COVID. And I'll never forget, because I went to her house to wash my clothes, because at that time I was going to Nashville to help do humanitarian work because of a major tornado that had recently struck up into that area. So I went by her house. I had some clothes to wash. She was always good towards helping me, towards wash my clothes. She'd give me stuff to eat, feed me. But I never forget, whenever I was leaving her living room, one of the last things she said was, "Dennis, the next time I see you now, I want you to lose some of that weight." And that was the last time I seen her. I thought the world of her. Here we are back up in Land Between the Lakes at the sacred site. I actually convinced her of walking up into the woods, which was give or take about a 45-minute, maybe an hour walk. And she actually went to the sacred site with me, and we had an opportunity of taking pictures. She took some pictures of me, and I took some pictures of her while we was actually at the sacred site up in LBL in Kentucky. This was some stuff here that absolutely don't have no meaning at all, other than me being a broken individual at the time whenever my wife had walked out of my life. There she is there, Miss Bobby Sue. We're up at Grand Rivers, Kentucky, right out there by the marina where the sailboats and all are. She took a picture of me. There's another picture of her up by the Kentucky Dam, the very dam that they tried to make me out to be a terrorist, like I was going to blow up, simply because I was trying to warn people and tell them of electrical disturbances to come. And sure enough, about a year and a half later, they got devastated by a major ice storm. Once more, me being misunderstood. People trying to promote me as me being the bad guy or a monster of some sort. There's Miss Bobby Sue there at the sacred site. She's sitting on the altar. She done got a little bit tired. This is a homemade altar that I'd made for praying and stuff. You can't even see the altar today because everything has been buried. I buried everything under the dirt. But yeah, I took her to the sacred site, as well as a few more other people that I've taken up there too as well, in addition to the people that have stumbled up onto it and the people in Land Between the Lakes that knows that it's there, because they have investigated the site thoroughly and basically chastised me because I moved some dirt around and I moved a rock around and I added this and I took away from that, and they worked me over pretty good just because I didn't leave things exactly like they was before I started this quest, going all the way back into 1980 and 8, whenever the National Forest Division didn't even operate or wasn't even in control of Land Between the Lakes. I actually stayed at that same site for 40 days and 40 nights while God was ordaining the first sword that the Secret Service had confiscated from me. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to stay at a site no longer than 14 days. It was in 1999 whenever TVA gave over their rights and allowed for the National Federal Forestry to take over. Those was the people that tried to make my life miserable, and those was the people that tried to set me up or entrap me like I was going to try to do some sort of harm to the Kentucky Dam. So sad. Pretty obvious she's gleaming there. She's just glad to get out of the house and to go out into the woods and smell the fragrancy of the ground and the woods and just be out in the nature. I miss her. I truly do miss her. There I am there standing inside the site. This is a letter here to United States Secret Service. This used to be their address where they was located at 801 Broadway. Since then, they have moved, and now they've got occupants in a completely different area there in Nashville, Tennessee. This was a church that me and Bobby Sue went to while I was up there living in 2005. This is my cousin. This would be from my uncle, Charla Jordan, his daughter that wound up having a big family. This is Jude Jordan Once more, that's my ex-wife. That's Amanda. Amanda and me asleep. I've been in the year that we was last together. Probably be the Christmas of 2004, leading into 2005. I had to sacrifice all this just to stand back up for the Lord thy God. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do the exact same thing. Because it's obvious that if I picked somebody as a soulmate that wasn't willing to stand with me after we accepted the vows, not once but twice. First time we got a divorce in 7 years. Second time we got another divorce. All in all, it was a 15-year relationship towards me helping her raise her children. If you can't stand with me and help me through my mistakes and my weaknesses and my goals and my dreams, then I don't need you to be a team player on my team to begin with. This is Nicholas, my son's stepchildren that now are all grown, that I've absolutely got no recollection of any type of relationship with other than just a few pictures. But as far as me talking to them and them talking to me and them looking at me like I'm their grandfather, or me looking at them like they're supposed to be my grandchildren, it never did evolve. It never did exist. And the reason why was because my son, my only firstborn biological son, planted that wedge between us after 2005, whenever Shirley walked out of my life. And since then, I've sacrificed all kinds of good memories and good time with not only my son, but with his children too as well. Now today, he's going through a major dilemma towards the degree that his wife has walked out of his life after trying to kill him. She wound up draining his checking account for X amount of dollars and wound up going back up to Denver, Colorado, where my son originally learned his bigger responsibilities to his occupation, that now he's down in Memphis, Tennessee, operating the same operation that was out in Denver, Colorado, which is supposed to be one of the biggest concrete pumping outfits in the world. None of these children biologically are my sons. There's a man and her best friend. There's Shirley again. There I am sleeping. I don't know why these pictures are coming back up again. We need to move on, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. It's repeating itself. Done this to me a while ago. Must have done a double take. All right, here I am in Chattanooga, where a Civil War battle had been fought up at, I think it's called Eagle Mountain. Very tranquil. Very, very unique experience whenever I got up there and done what I done in Chattanooga, Tennessee. There I am up on top of the, I guess it's a hotel or motel, looking down at the clouds. You're that high on this particular mountain. It's foggy that day. Now I'm back down here in Oklahoma. No, this is Kennesaw, Georgia. Kennesaw, Georgia, whenever they was having a get together out here, a family outing, and they was having, I guess, some sort of a beauty review. That's a trampoline thing that they had set up for the kids. You can read the side of the motorcycle right there. It says Kennesaw Police. I actually was working for Gerber Collision and Glass at the time. This would have been in 2009, whenever I was attacked again by the GBI. wanting to know what I thought about the Unabomber that blowed up the abortion clinic that wound up killing one girl and blinding another. I told them that two wrongs didn't make a right. Group of people there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was a reporter in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Let's go a little further. Yes, this is where they went in with a robot, a $1,000 robot, and done damage to my camper. We're going back to the curse. They're up in Land Between the Lakes. This is the Cherokee badge that I was granted towards planning up in LBL at the sacred site. This is another side view picture of my truck. Here I am in the middle of the ceremony there. Or one of the ceremonies. I've actually went through several ceremonies up in Land Between the Lakes. Once more, this is my truck out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Then I go back into the woods in Land Between the Lakes. Sorry about it going flip-flopping back and forth. At least I am trying to entertain you and tell you what's going on here. Once more, that's the curse. That's the sacred site area. After that, I had removed all the remains that made the curse. This was up in Oklahoma. Here I am back in Kentucky. Back in Kentucky, sacred site. This is a bunch of U.S. Marshals out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that was madder than you know what about me coming in there and busting their little party open towards exposing and revealing them that there was more to the Oklahoma bombing that they was revealing and exposing to the general public. There's the curse again, the sacred site. Here I am with my cousin up in Lynn, Missouri. That's Johnny Jordan, Joanne's, Charlie Jordan's daughter's son that died last year. It was in a bad car accident, and we think he died of fentanyl overdose. Once more, I'm back up in LBL at the sacred site. This is my cousin out at Lynn, Missouri, that I took a picture of. I don't know why it's so flip-floppy, going from one event to another. This is a stone that was made in Atlanta, Georgia, there at Kennesaw, Georgia, that supposedly ended on 12/12/12, and there was not supposed to be no more time after 12/12/12. I wish I could have got the writings better, but the sun wasn't fair to me that day. There's my truck. Alabama. Taking a helicopter ride. I think it was the same ordeal while I was in Kennesaw, Georgia. Community Center. Pretty big day. Now, I think, no, this is, I don't remember. These are all pictures I'm sure that you recognize pertaining to the sacred site and the curse up at LBL. That's what the site finalized looked like after I got through with it. Let me go back. After it growed for about a year and grass grew up around it, because I sowed grass out there. And then, of course, the following next year is whenever I went back and I disassembled it and I put the altar back out there to where I could pray on the altar, and then eventually I buried all of it, every bit of it. Went through a lot of work to be sure that I was doing this properly. Once more, I was up there by myself, camping primitively. And one of the reasons why I felt like that God had called me into that particular area up by Sugar Bay off of Legal Road 142 is because if you look right here at the back side, you can see part of the Kentucky Lake. That's all water right there. That's what that is. So in the wintertime, after the leaves fell, I had a magnificent view up there towards seeing barges go up and down the river at night, etc., etc. In other words, I was at a very, very high point that God had led me into. I didn't know the geographics of Land Between the Lakes, and still don't, towards what's the highest point and what's the lowest point. I just went by what God was trying to show me. This is whenever in 2009, whenever the ice storm hit. At this particular point in time, I was down on the Tennessee side because the Kentucky side was shut down. It was about 10 degrees during the day and about 0 at night. I took a tarpaulin wrapped around a tree, a big tarpaulin, and put one of those round kerosene heaters in there. And that's how I spent my day, being all bundled up. And at night, I had a bunch of covers and slept as snug as in the rug. This would have been in 2009, after the ice storm had hit, and after that I had completed helping, doing humanitarian work, give or take, for about a month and a half, 2 months. So this right here was probably right at the beginning phases of March in the Tennessee side, but still on Land Between the Lakes property, somewhere around Joanne or Janice or something like that bay. I think it was Joanne Bay or Janice Bay or something like that. I stayed out there for 2 weeks, moved my truck, and then come back and done it again. So in total, I stayed on the Tennessee side for a month before I decided to go up towards Indianapolis, Indiana, come back down through Dayton, Ohio, come back down through Cincinnati, Ohio. That's wherever I went to Florence, Kentucky, and got pulled over by about 15 cops that said that they had misidentified me because I had all my toes on both feet. At the time, I was staying at a church down by Florence, Kentucky, where they had a big prehistoric, they found a big prehistoric, some sort of a, I guess you'd call it a horn or a tusk that come off one of those prehistoric animals. After I got through up at Florence, Kentucky, was whenever I wound up going down to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and that's whenever I got acquainted with them people down there. Once more, I'm still tied to the tree there in LBL. That's back at the site. I'm inside where I got my little heater. See how green the grass is all around there? See what I done? I took 2 trees. This was some of the material that I buried at LBL on 5/8/08. Along with a crucifixion of Christ. Some more articles that I buried down in the ground. This was a belt buckle that I had planted into a tree that the tree had basically grown around the belt buckle after so many years. This was a picture that I still to this day have in the back end of my truck on the center window that says the Weeping Wolf. While I was up fasting and praying for God to sanctify the site, was whenever the wolves come to my site and tried to disembark on what I was doing. That way I would not complete what that God had appointed me to do. This was on the first get up, the first fasting, and the first sanctification of the sword that was aluminum at the time that I purchased just on the other side of Kenton. This was the sword that the United States government confiscated from the ministry that led into the weeping wolf. Why is the wolf weeping? The wolf is weeping because he knows that he's been defeated and his time is short. That's why the wolf is weeping. Once more, there I am at the site. There's the buckle that grew around the tree. Green grass. Here I am right here. I actually took the sword box. This was before I come back from Florida in 2007. And I actually buried the sword box up at Land Between the Lakes. And while it stayed up there one whole winter, the wolves and coyotes dug a hole, because I buried it about 2 foot in the ground, dug a hole and was scratching the backside of the sword box once more in trying to stop or intervene in what I was doing. And you can't really see it on that picture right there, but you can see some markings here, 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 scratches where they was taking their hooves or their feet and scratching in the back of the box towards trying their best to stop this project from going forward. Whenever I come back that spring, everything looked different up in Land Between the Lakes. Like I said, I've lived in total for over a year, like Jeremiah Johnson, living in the primitive up at Land Between the Lakes, living primitive. Whenever I come back to get the box, before I had placed the sword back into the box of the 2007 ceremony, whenever I had purchased another sword in St. John Street, St. John Street there in St. Augustine, I actually had to go get a money finder, a metal detector, just in order to find the box. Because it was so growed up and everything looks so different after the limbs and the trees and everything growed out. It was puzzling to me towards where the box was. If I'm not mistaken, this was in 2006. I can't remember if it was in 2006. I know I come back from Florida in 2007 with the actual sword, but the sword hadn't been placed back into the box yet. I've run into a lot of trouble up there, and because of it, I'd have to really sit down and look at my paperwork to tell exactly what the date actually was, either before 208 or after 208, whenever I wound up going back out to Denver, Colorado, and then coming back that fall. But yeah, I had a lot of trouble up there with them rangers at LBL towards not only the wolves was trying to stop me, but the people was trying to stop me. The people in general did not want this to go forth. And they didn't know why that they was attracted to me or looking at me or wanting to know what I was doing towards spying on me. They just knew that they was keeping an eye on me. Basically tormenting my life while I was up there doing what I was doing. The weeping wolf. Here I am completing the ceremony after I made the curse. This was whenever I planted the grass, and then I come back a year later whenever the grass had grown back that spring. That's whenever I dismantled the mound, the curse mound. Now the sword has been placed back into the box. I'm sorry that I don't have it laid out to where you can truly understand in differentiating the difference between whether or not this was in 206, 207, 208, or 209. If you find a dream inside your heart, don't ever let it go. That was posted to the back of the box. These were some pictures that I gave the LBL Rangers pertaining to a Civil War, pertaining to an Indian culture of the Weeping Wolf. And that one right there pertaining to help from above, spirituality. I gave them 3 different pictures. But these was the people that attacked my life, not just once, but several times in trying to ruin my life. Keep going. Now we're in Florida during Christmas season, working for a body shop in St. Augustine, Florida. I think it was by the name of Wilson's Collision Center, our dealership there in St. Augustine, Florida. These are just some pictures that I took from various places down around Miami. Kind of scan through it. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Keep going. Ripley's Believe It or Not. That's in St. Augustine. Church, St. John Street, are all from St. John Street. I believe that was right across from the business where I had purchased the last sword symbolizing peace on earth. There's a church, Catholic church. I think it's Catholic. It might be Methodist. These are pictures of Christ. The crucifixion. Mary, Jesus, baby Jesus, Christ after crucifixion. During crucifixion. Some more pictures that basically relates to the same thing. St. Augustine, Florida, right here. Let me go back. It's founded September the 8th, 1563 is whenever it first become a settlement. More Christmas stuff, Christmas directions. These were some people that I stayed with down in Florida in 2000. Whenever I first went down to Florida, I stayed with her husband, and there's her 2 boys and a little baby that was associated with my cousin. It was associated with my cousin, Gary Jackson, that was staying with them down by the Daytona area, in between Daytona and Orlando, Florida. I didn't know for sure what I was going to do with my life. So I come down there to try to start afresh. I had no idea that God was going to lead me towards purchasing another sword, going through another rigmarole of the sword becoming anointed by God until after I was already down in Florida. Once more, I was working for a body shop there in St. Augustine, and what you're looking at right now is devastation of a tornado that come up through Florida along about November that killed about 30 people, pretty close to DeLand, Florida, which once more is somewhere about halfway in between Daytona and Orlando. Down there doing humanitarian work. Jack Wilson's Chevrolet Garage, Chevrolet dealership. There's the body shop. There's the paint shop. There's a guy I work with. There's the body shop. Body shop. There's Gary Jackson right there. That's the one there that my youngest uncle at the time, which would be my biological father's youngest brother, adopted Gary and Jeff Jackson to be part of the family. Gary's got a bad drinking problem, and I wish that somebody could make contact with him towards trying to get over his drinking problem, but he's just drinking his life away. Very sad. Happy-go-lucky guy. Ordinarily, couldn't ask for nobody any better until he gets plumb drunk, and then he gets belligerent. This is a picture of me whenever I first got down into that area. This was before I started working for Jack Wilson's Chevrolet Garage in 2006. Keep in mind, I'd done already worked the Katrina damage in 2005. Done already went up to Land Between the Lakes. Went to Land Between the Lakes first in 2005, and then wound up going on a big adventure trip, going up through C&O Canal, walking and being on a quest towards trying to retrieve the sword back that I felt like that the government had confiscated, wanting peace upon to the earth. And I wound up walking, give or take, about 67 miles on the C&O Canal, pulling a wagon into Washington, D.C., pretty close to Georgetown. After that I got up there, this was after that I had worked about 6 months down in Mississippi pertaining to the major Hurricane Katrina. I wound up leaving Washington, D.C., come back home to Memphis, got my tools. Didn't have a toolbox at the time other than that great big one, and I wasn't going to take it. But anyways, I wound up going down to Florida, blindsided, not knowing if I was going to be able to get a job or not. And while I was down there, I bought a cheaper set of toolboxes to be able to maintain and protect the interest of my tools. So this is me in 2006, the year right before I purchased the second sword and went back to LBL for the second sword to be anointed. This is an Anastasia Baptist Church. I become very, very acquainted with them while I was working for Mr. Wilson. Loved them. They loved me. Matter of fact, the minister, which I think I got a picture of him here somewhere, wished me well and knew that I had an anointing in my life to do something for God, and told me that he wished that I would be able to fulfill my anointing or my calling. In other words, he had already detected a anointing in my life because of so many different private meetings and professional meetings that we had. These were some people in my same class. I think this was the elderly class, senior citizens class, or something like that. This was my apartment in Anastasia, on Anastasia Island. There was my truck that I still have today. That's Anastasia Church. It's a big church. And of course, in 2006, began the first developments of the massacres that we had not heard of up until 2006 in these regards towards we have gotten adapted to. This was one of the first events, and Anastasia Baptist Church put out our prayers are for all students and victims at Virginia Tech College, University. What's more, the t-shirt that I put out to the 43rd President of the United States that said a bloody road ahead was misconstrued to the point that Homeland Security didn't understand that I was trying to help them, not hurt them, but help them in giving out these type of advisories. The same way as up in Kentucky by telling them about electrical disturbances pertaining to major weather events and ice storms and etc. I was misunderstood. And since Virginia Tech, God only knows how many massive slayings that we've seen, including just as of this week, a massive slaying down in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and a massive slaying in Denver, Colorado. I stayed at Anastasia for about a year on the island and loved it. I needed that type of healing because of going through the divorce that I went through in 2005. I actually felt like that my life was no longer fit or worthy to be living. There's part of the body shop, one side of it. There was some people, good people that I was working with there. That was the old fortress that you was looking at right there. Let me back up. That's the old Spanish fortress right there in St. Augustine, Florida, that I guess fought one of the first battles towards our freedoms that we have here today. And just down from there is where Ripley's Believe It or Not is. This is St. Augustine. This is their bay. This is the city of St. Augustine. I think there was a military compound post right there. National Guard. See all the grave sites? This is the old Lion Bridge that actually went into the backside of Anastasia Island. They was doing a lot of refurbishing on this bridge at the time. I don't know if they ever got it finished or not. But man, it was a good looking bridge. This is the other bridge going into Anastasia Island that I mostly took going back and forth to work because it was the one closest to me. It directly come out on the Anastasia Island pretty close, within a half mile where I actually was living at the time. That's my view that I've seen every morning and every afternoon going to work and going back home for about a year. That's what I look across to the windows and see. Jack Wilson, Chevrolet Garage. There's the collision center. There's my truck again. It's got that torn spot in the tailgate where I had clipped a trailer and I was already doing previous damage to my truck at that time, that banged it up the way I was banging it up, going to different places and doing things. Wasn't near as banged up as what it is now, but it was still banged up. This was, I think, at a little restaurant just outside of Anastasia up the coast that I wound up becoming accustomed to some of their good seafood at the time. People definitely living the good life. This is at the restaurant. This would have been on the ending episode of me fixing to leave. I had probably already purchased the sword, but the sword hadn't been sanctified, because if you look at this dollar bill right here, this is actually inside a bathroom where they had all these pictures and stuff. It says 4807. That was the actual date right before I had quit Jack and went back to LBL pertaining to the sanctification of the second sword. This is the bathroom, the men's bathroom. You walk in the men's bathroom and this is what you seen hanging, articles of famous people all over the bathroom. And I just had a crazy idea. Well, I'm going to pretend like I'm famous and I'm going to sign a dollar bill and put it up on the wall too as well. And that's what I done. These are some of the waitresses there. Here I am on St. John Street taking a picture. That's the Fortress. This is St. John Street, I think. Stuff to entertain the eye. This is the guy here that sold me the sword symbolizing peace on earth, off of St. John Street in St. Augustine, Florida. I had many, many swords to pick from at the time. And I'm talking thousands of different swords, thousands of different knives and all kinds of different articles. But I chose the very one with the Apocalypse model on the handle, because that was the one that God told me to get. But as you can see, he has a variety of all kinds of pointed instruments hanging from his walls that says, don't swing anything. In other words, if you take the sword off the wall, look at it, but don't swing. Because they are sharp. Most of them are sharp instruments. Camelot. These was pictures that was in the window of various places that I was looking at as I was purchasing the sword that day. Two officers. Here I am at a gentleman's house outside of Atlanta, Georgia, going south towards Macon, Georgia, that wound up sharpening the sword symbolizing peace on earth. That was his house. That's his driveway, or part of his driveway. And this is the individual here that was actually sharpening the sword, as I explained to him just exactly what I was doing with this particular product before I ever made it back to LBL for the second sanctification. That was the back of the guy's shirt that I guess he promoted his own business. He was a metalsmith man. Done nothing but sharpen instruments. Professional. Now he's finished up on the sword, got it sharp. This is the handle to the sword. The Apocalypse sword. The sword symbolizing peace on earth that I now am in contact and in access to. This right here would be the actual Antichrist. Let's back up. That's the second seal right there. He was given a sword to take peace from the earth. Then you got the actual Antichrist, the pale horseman. Let's back up. Well, I got a better picture of it somewhere, but you can't see it right here on this one. But right here on this corner right here, this is the actual false prophet, for she was holding a pair of balances in her hand. Or maybe the pair of balances is over here. I think the pair of balances is right here. Of the second horseman. Let me go forward. Here I am now at the actual ceremony up at LBL. This would be in probably, I'm going to say May, June, July. Probably long about June or July of 2007. Towards having the Father sanctify the second time, the second sword. Because of all the problems that I had gotten from not only the first time, but now after me staying up there for about 21 days, right at 30 days, they run me completely away from my site up at Sugar Bay. Said that I was extending my stay because I didn't know the rules, didn't read the rule book, which was my fault. Pushed me away, and that's whenever they attacked me up at Paducah, Kentucky, having me arrested because I was trying to warn people that God had showed me that there was going to be major electrical disturbances to come. And that's whenever they also went to Aurora, Kentucky, give or take about a month after that, whenever all the hullabaloo broke loose in my life, towards going to a regular campsite there at Aurora, Kentucky, called Earth Daddies, that they tried to arrest me again, towards thinking that I was going to blow up the Kentucky Dam. And what penetrated into their minds towards them thinking this, other than me saying something about electrical disturbances, to this day, I'm still at all about. All right, that right there is, in fact, the false prophet, for she holds a time glass or a pair of balances. You'd have to see it up close to understand it. Or you can look it up. You can look it up online, the Apocalypse sword. The whole time while I was up there, I was praying for a unification and praying for peace and utopia, and praying that God would move in such a miraculous way, and every demon in the world come at me for trying to destroy my works. This was a little church that I was going to at the time up in Cadiz, Kentucky, I believe. It's been so long ago. There's a ceremony again with the sword. The light was striking it just right, and it was giving out this blare. Had it all screened in. That's where I lived. I was living up there. That was my home. Not my permanent home, but it was my home at that time. towards me doing what I was doing for God, that I got disrupted. There's the path that I was taking in and out to get up there to the sacred site. And you could tell that I was walking quite a bit back and forth, staying exercised, staying in shape, doing what needed to be done, while the sword remained on the altar. See, I'm going to explain something to my viewers here. Because the ceremony was disrupted in the actual 40th day, I had enough strength, believe it or not, to pick that rock up with that sword on the rock, put it in my truck, drove to Clarksville, Tennessee, and put that rock and that sword, along with some of my other personal possessions, in a storage area, and wound up going out to Denver, Colorado, staying, give or take, for 3 or 4 or 5 months. And then I come back to LBL that fall, give or take around November, whenever the weather started changing. And that's whenever I took the rock from the storage area with the sword still on it, put it on a sled, and drug the sled and the rock and the sword back up on top to the sacred site, and finished completing the 40-day, 40 nights. But it was not a continuous 40 days and 40 nights. But I was dead set that I was going to do this, even at the expense of, whenever I first got back to LBL, I was handed 2 pieces of paper towards basically going to court that Dwayne Cameron had put out, that I had threatened his life simply because I had told him that if they come back up there the second time towards interfering with what I was doing, that God would strike them down dead. And because I told them that God would strike them down dead, they took that as an actual threat. But it was not an actual threat coming from me, because I did not say that I was going to harm them or hurt them. I told them that God was going to. And it actually took about a year into that proceeds towards me going back to Paducah, Kentucky in front of the federal courts before they finally dismissed the first charge of threatening a police officer. This was after that I'd worked in Atlanta, shut down the Atlanta Calvary down around the Capitol building, and I'd also worked in Savannah, Georgia, and also worked in Montgomery, Alabama. Once more, I was taking care of myself as I was going along, but I was waiting for different time periods for me to pick and choose my battles of whenever I was going to go back to LBL. And I wound up going back up to LBL in 2008, once more praying and fasting for a revival. And that's whenever I wound up planting the box in the grounds, digging it back up, and then putting the sword back into the box that the federal authorities had confiscated on the first the first sword. So yes, I was going through tremendous time, tremendous work, tremendous effort, being very passionate about what I was doing and why I was doing it. Trying to figure out what I want to do here. I done hit the wrong button, seemingly. Go back to, here we are now. This was after that I had finished out the ceremony. This was probably along about December, whenever I finished out the ceremony, and I was up in Paducah, Kentucky, because I had rented out another spot, another storage area in Paducah, Kentucky. And at that time, I was working for some body shop people in Paducah, Kentucky, just to be able to go forward with my life, because I didn't have nobody backing me. Even Bobby Sue wasn't giving me no money. Nobody was giving the ministry any money. So I was basically having to be self-supportive in what I was doing. And the only way that I know to do that was to work, and work a little while, quit my job, work a little while, quit my job, work a little while, take care of this, work a little while, take care of that, until I finally completed what I needed to complete. It's kind of difficult in doing something for the Lord, especially whenever you got everybody in the world towards trying to stop you. A lot of malice behavior. This card right here is the Secret Service agent that stopped me while I was walking down the C&O Canal, give or take around White's Ferry. White's Ferry is where these two Secret Service agents, after they found out that I was on my way to Washington, D.C., they wanted to interview me and look over everything and make sure that I didn't have no harmful intentions towards coming to Washington, D.C. I think White's Ferry was give or take about 40 miles, maybe 30 miles from getting into Georgetown, where Washington, D.C. is. They actually stopped, interviewed me, and I wound up putting that card on the sword box itself. And at that time, the sword box was empty. It did not have a sword in it. But I did put that card on the sword box, and that's where it remained, because I was tired of being aggravated by Homeland Security over me doing what I felt like that God had called me to do. If that makes any sense to anybody. I wound up wearing out about 3 wagons. There at the last, I had to go up Papaw's tunnel backwards because I'd lost an axle and a wheel on my wagon. Once more, a lot of aggravation. A lot of aggravation. One nation under God, indivisible, and liberty for all. No sword, no peace. There was my address that I was staying at the time with my son. This is my dad's address at the time he was living. It's supposed to be a P on Thompson. And it's in a lane. It's supposed to be a road. This is another apartment, and the only thing I can think of where I took these pictures right here at was while I was up towards Redstone, working for a body shop up in Alabama, Redstone, Alabama, next to their army base. I actually rented out this apartment. This is the only thing that I can think of where I took these pictures at, was up in that area. I didn't stay long, because it wasn't long after that I wound up packing up and going back to LBL, because I done already had the sword. I went to work for these people after I quit Montgomery Paint and Body in Montgomery, Alabama. A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of passion. I don't know for sure. I'm thinking that this was in Alabama. No, it was not. This picture right here is where I was renting out a hotel, extended stay by the month. And this was after they'd already done the damage to my truck. Then again, I don't have the camper shell on there. I don't know then. I don't know where this picture was taken. I was thinking it was taken in where Oral Roberts Ministry is, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it very well may have been. I may have taken the camper off and put it in behind the shop or somewhere, because I was, you can take the camper off just within a couple of minutes. All you got to have is another person to help you. I very well may have been out there, because I noticed that these pictures that I took right here, Accurate Body Shop, these was the people that I was working for in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. Sand Springs, Oklahoma. And here is a picture in Oral Roberts Ministries Coliseum, where they was having a beauty contest. Oklahoma beauty contest right here. See all the nice looking clothes, wearing a crown. This was a group of people outside of Sand Springs that I'd gotten acquainted with. Went to church there 3 or 4 different times. That's the minister right there with the white beard, wearing the pink looking shirt. Right, sitting right beside the guy with the white shirt. There in the center, on the back row. The guy over next to the blow-up doll, that's an Indian. There's a preacher right there again. Once you get into Oklahoma, you'll find a lot of Native American people. Lots. You got your Sooners, but you also got your Native American people too. There's the preacher again. Little blow-up houses. This was the actual body shop that I was working for in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, outside of Oklahoma, whenever they wound up planting a bomb in the back of my truck and blowing the back of my truck up. I was working for this individual, Chris Donnelly, in his Ford store that was below Tulsa, Oklahoma, about 20 miles, in a place called Norman, Oklahoma. I think I got my facts right on that, pertaining to the name of the town. It's wherever that they got their big university at. And of course, this is the Oklahoma site where Timothy McVeigh and Nichols blowed up in 1995, killing 168 lives. Either this guy or this guy is the ones that had me banded from the Oklahoma federal site. That's what I'm thinking. Because to this day, I'm still not welcome to go back, even as just a regular visitor or a guest. I guess they banded me indefinitely towards me ever going back to this particular, where the Mario building site was. Simply because I voiced my opinion, and I felt like that my opinion was credible enough to be able to say what I said in regards towards there being a government cover-up. To this day, they're still holding my feet to the fire and holding that against me. People don't want the truth. Not the whole truth. Here I am now back at the site. It's late in the afternoon, taking a picture of myself. I don't know what I'm doing. This is back in Oklahoma. Oklahoma. This is the federal building that I guess Bush helped to fund. The new federal building, Oklahoma Federal Building. There's my truck again, right there by Oklahoma, the site. There's the new federal building that they built. And there's my cousin again, Jude, working. There I am. There I am. And it goes back to the Oklahoma bombing. This was some people here that I stopped off on the side of the road. I think they was at a restaurant or a gas station or something, and they was pulling this, taking it somewhere for a museum, arts and museum, that I found it to be pretty fascinating, and who done it and how they done it. And I took some pictures of it. I thought it was pretty cool. And then we're back where we originally started, back at the site. Once more, I want to thank my viewers. Good luck to all of us. I know that if I didn't stay here with this project, it would have been boring and unattractive in me just letting this run automatically. Besides that, it would have taken twice as long. But if I didn't explain some of these pictures to you, where I was, when I was doing what I was doing, you would have been as lost as a goose in the middle of a you-know-what storm. So I want to thank my viewers for taking the time and listening to me and watching these pictures, these historic pictures pertaining to biblical Bible prophecy. And I just want to say good luck to all of us. Good luck to each and every one of us. And shalom. Shalom, and God bless America, and God bless his precious people in these latter days pertaining to end-time biblical Bible prophecy. Thanks again. As I travel through this pilgrim land, there is a friend who walks with me. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand.